Join us for the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast, where we discuss matters close to the heart. This and every Saturday at 8 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on HGG Radio. I am your host, Dr. Lincoln Bryan, alongside your co-host, Pastor Clive Atkinson, Bishop Hopeton Morris, and Elder Edmund Muir. The Iron Man Empowerment Podcast. We're not just talk, we're informative. Good morning, and welcome to the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast, live right here inside the HGG Radio Studios. And I'm so delighted that you choose to join us this morning. Pleasant good morning to you. Welcome to the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast. We want to thank all our listeners near and far that choose to wake up with us morning after morning. We are really so appreciative that you are here with us on this morning. Of course, on the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast, we discuss matters that are close to the heart. I'm your host, Dr. Lincoln Bryan, and I'm joined this morning by our co-hosts, waiting for them. We'll be chiming in just in a little while. Remember, on the first Saturday, we apologize to Bishop Hopeton Morris, who's not able to join us this morning, and Elder Muir and Pastor Clive will be with us in just a short while. Of course, this weekend is the convention for Higher Ground Tabernacle. That's where Pastor Clive is the pastor there in Edmonton. So please join us online, and you can join us right here on HEG Radio. The services will be broadcasting live, so please join us there. Today we are tackling the topic transitions. We're dealing with managing transition this morning, and of course joining me on the podcast is our radio station manager. Yes, the man behind all of this that we do, our radio station manager. He keep us in line, get everything going and running and up and going. So we are delighted to show you what he looks like on Iron Man Empowerment Podcast. He always hide in the background. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our radio station manager, Minister Rashane Douglas, who is our very special guest here on the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast. Minister Douglas, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Lincoln Bryan. Dr. Links.
Yes, I am doing good. You know what? I'm so happy that you're able to join us this morning. It was just yesterday. I said, but by the way, you haven't come on the podcast. I'm sure the listeners will want to know, who is behind all of this and everything that is going on. HEG Radio and of course Iron Man Empowerment Podcast, and put all this production and everything going on. So they hear me closing out each morning and saying that on behalf of the entire production team, but they are not even sure who make up the production team or who is the production team. And so of course this is one of the main driver behind Iron Man Empowerment Podcast and the HGG Radio. And of course we are so delighted that you are able to be here this morning. And of course, if you have not yet joined his show, he has his own show in the morning. Sir, would you just take a minute and just tell us about your show each morning?
Well, I was gonna just play the promo so persons can know that I'm the person who normally hosts the Hope of Glory morning show.
Yes.
It's aired Monday to Friday right here on HGG Radio from 6 to 8 o'clock. Normally, I'm not accustomed to being in this position where I am the one who is being asked to speak. Normally, my flow is a bit different, but I thank God for this opportunity to share on this topic, managing transitions. Just being in this show. Over the years, I've grown to become a morning person. So a lot of persons can manage this aspect of the day where you get up every morning early to share something or to lay to minister to people what the Lord has laid on your heart. So it's a very, very unique anointing that the Lord has graced me with. A lot of persons, as I said, they're not going to do what I do, to get up early every morning and to share and to make that sacrifice, because I can say that it's a sacrifice. Because most mornings, Dr. Links, I really say to myself, if it was about me, I would be staying in the bed.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell. But
I don't know how y'all do it, radio presenters, with the very early morning shows and get up and have, your voice kicking and you're smiling, you're on the camera, persons are watching morning after morning. So I applaud you for doing what you're
yeah,
doing. And
because I realize that when some persons are working in the mornings, I realize that they have to warm the voice up, and you know, not everybody is a morning person. But I've grown over the years. I've worked at a couple of radio stations back home in Jamaica where I was given the opportunity to work in the morning shift. So it has become a part of me where I get up early, try to get to work, and even if I get to the studio 1 minute before, for example, 6 o'clock when I go on air, I'm always ready to start. So I give God thanks for that. So remember to tune in Monday to Friday right here on HGG Radio, right here on our YouTube channel. Of course, on our website hggradio.ca, you can visit that anytime and you can tune in. The name of the show is called the Hope of Glory Morning Show, and the reason why
glory.
persons ask me why the Hope of Glory Morning Show. Just a quick story, Dr. Links. I remember when I just started working on radio. My bishop I used to edit my bishop radio programs, and one of his favorite passage of scripture, I believe, was Colossians 1 verse 27, where it says, "The Christ in you, the hope of glory." So I
Yeah.
said to myself when I was about to start working on radio for the first time, I said, I need the Christ to be in me because I know this is not going to be easy. So I remember the
Yes.
first time I came on radio, public radio in Jamaica, I said to myself, "My name is Rashane Douglas, the Christ in me, the hope of glory." And it has become a
And it
part of
stick.
me. It has become a part of me ever since. And that's how
It
I do
does.
it. That's how I stay relevant. That's how I have this longevity. It's all about the Christ in me. It's never about me. It's never about me, but it's about the Christ in me. So
Christ
that's
in me.
in a nutshell, Dr. Links.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being here with us. The Christ in me, the hope of glory.
That's right.
While I'm saying good morning to all our listeners and those who are joining us near and far, to all our listeners in Jamaica, we say good morning. Antigua, St. Martin, the UK Massive are here. So good morning to our UK Massive, those here in Canada, and to all those who are listeners near and far in the United States. We say good morning to you and thank you again for joining us. Good morning to you, Kathleen Andrews. Said good morning. Blessed Saturday to everyone. Simon Edwards, I see you. Good morning. And this is Minister Edwards from the Sister Batik from Tabernacle of Love. And let me tell you, they are on every morning, and not only are they on, but they're
Mhm.
sharing this program in their church group and everywhere, and everyone she meet, she is sharing this program, and they're on week after week, and we are so delighted and we're grateful for you, Lady Batik. And in fact, let me say that the Tabernacle of Love, they're having their 10th church anniversary, pastoral anniversary coming up, an appreciation banquet, and this is happening in New York. So this church is based in New York, and they are supporting us, and this is happening on Sunday, September 15. I wanted to go and support them. Those of our massive in New York, New Jersey, at the Glen Terrace Catering Hall in Patrician Ballroom, 5313 Avenue in New York, and that's in Brooklyn. And you can, of course, reach out to Tabernacle of Love. They're on Facebook and they're on the social media space. Reach out and get your tickets. I want you to support this church. They have been a tremendous, tremendous blessing to this podcast. So, of course, you can reach out to Pastor Batik, those who know them, Tabernacle of Love, or Lady Simone Batik. You can call them at 347-801-4496 or Tabernacle of Love. Find them on YouTube, Facebook, and I want you to go over and support them. They have been ardent supporter of the show, their 10th year of church anniversary. So we want to just shout them out and plug that for them. Good morning to my dear aunt, Mahalia Emmings, always on. Of course, we also want to say big shout out to everyone in Jamaica and the Grand Cayman, those who have been affected by the hurricane. Yes, we want to say send you our love and positive vibration to everyone that has been affected, and of course other parts of the Caribbean. And we want to let you know that here on the Ironman Empowerment Podcast and HEG Radio, we are sending our love to you. Our thoughts and our prayers are with you, and so we want to thank those. Some are still without electricity, Brother Shane, especially those who are in the middle part of Jamaica, St. Elizabeth, and those down there has really, really been affected.
Let's call it
So
Middlesex. Middlesex.
Middlesex. There you go. Middlesex, Jamaica. Have really been affected. And so we want to shout out those persons down there. And we're just grateful that, a lot of persons are saved, not a lot of damage I'm getting. I'm learning from Jamaican. So we want to thank God for that. Good morning to my dear sister-in-law over there in Florida, Emery Smith in Antigua, Rashonda Lewis. We say good morning. Thank you. Blessing. Sandra Michelle. Good morning to you. And of course, she's a part of the Tabernacle of Love family. Marsha Ben in Fort Lauderdale. Good morning to you. Of course, we receive your love and we send love right back to you. We're going to dive into this because we're talking about managing transitions this morning, and we want to get as much as we can from our studio manager. He's used to being on the other part where he's asking the questions, but I guess the role has changed. We have transitioned and pivot this morning.
Amen.
we have
Amen.
we have made a transition and we have also pivoted, and so of course you're on the other side of things, but of course there's a lot in you that we want to pull out and we want our listeners to hear. And so let me set it up as we go into the program. So, as we navigate the twists and turns of life journey, we will discover how embracing change can lead to growth. Yes, it can, and renewal and deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And from a personal transformation to global shift, we'll explore it all. And so we want you to buckle up and get ready to transform your perspective as we dive into the dynamic world of transition. You see, transition is a process of change and growth that we must all navigate. And at some point in our lives, it's a journey that can be both exhilarating and intimidating, filled with uncertainty and possibilities. Whether we're transitioning to a new career, a new home, a new phase of life, or simply a new mindset, it requires us to adapt, to evolve, and often redefine who we are and where we're heading. As we embrace transition, we open ourselves up to new experiences, new relationships, new opportunities for growth and self discovery. And it's precisely this willingness to embrace change that allow us to transform, to innovate, and to thrive in a world that is constantly in flux. And so this morning, we want to thank Minister Rasheen, who is joining us. For those who are just joining us, Rasheen is our studio manager, our radio station manager here at HGG Radio. And of course, the voice and the face behind a lot of the commercials that you'll hear running and behind everything that we do, large part of our production team. So thank you so much, Rasheen, for joining us as we talk about transition. As we dive into it and managing transitions at every part of our life, there's some part we have to deal with transition at every part. Sometimes it is somebody died, sometimes it is, as we mentioned, it's a new job, you've moved to a new country, you have, things change, a new baby is in the family,
Yeah.
something happened, we transit, we pivot. And so my very first question, what I want to ask you is what has inspired you to make significant transition in your life, and how did you prepare for it as you have transitioned? Especially, you're moving from Jamaica, you're moving from a very different, you have done radio for years, and of course something maybe even larger on a larger scale, and moving here and have to set up everything from scratch and moving with your family and taking your family to a different country. Talk to me about the significant transition in your life and even your career, and how did you prepare for it?
Good question. Good morning again, listeners. Those who are joining us on YouTube, those on Facebook, those listening via hggradio.ca. Again, my name is Rashane Douglas, the Christ in me, the hope of glory. Some call me Minister Rashane, some call me Brother Rashane. It's okay. Right. So, as it relates to transitions, there's, just looking at transitions, there's so many different transitions I've encountered in my life. Dr. Links asked the question about the transition from Rashane Douglas in Jamaica to Rashane Douglas here in Canada. But before we got there, my life on a whole has been a transition. Giving my life to the Lord. Our pastor Clive would say it's the other way around. We don't have any life to give the Lord. It's the Lord who gives us life.
Mhm.
But one thing I've learned over the years, Dr. Links, I went to Calabar High School, for those who are from Jamaica who represents the green and black. I remember going to all boys school. That's the first transition because growing up, you go to primary school and you're accustomed to seeing the girls. And I remember when I passed for Calabar, somebody said to me that no girl go to that school, and I'm saying, oh, and I'm saying that's the first transition. I'm saying, how am I going to survive? Because I'm used to a co-ed school where you're seeing girls. So
Right.
that was the first transition for me. I was told that I was going to an all boys school. One of my friends passed for another school, which was a co-ed school. And I said, let us switch schools, but he wanted to go to Calabar. But after coming to Calabar school, I realized it was a very good school. I didn't do so well in CXC. For those who are wondering, I got three subjects. In the first time I did CXC, I got math, which was a hard subject. I got two in math, I got two in accounting, and I got three in POB. So persons were always saying that Rasheen was always good with the numbers. He was always good with the hard subjects. The reason why I didn't pass physics was because I lost my lab book. So I got I kind of lost interest in physics. So I didn't pursue it that much. But what I'm basically saying is that Dr. Links, I went ahead and I failed English language. For those who would say, Rushane, you're working on radio, you're speaky spokey. You don't know my story. They always say they see the glory, but they don't know your story.
That's it.
For me, I did English language in CXC 5 times. For those who might be saying
Wow.
5 times. So
You could have hired me.
if I had known Dr. Leaks back in the day, maybe he would have trained me and so on. But what I'm basically saying is that the first time I did CXC English, I did it 4 times and I got 4 4s. So I was a cricket fan. So at one point I thought I was Brian Law or Chris Gale because I was
Coming
just
out
hitting
this
fours.
force.
I was just hitting fours and I was saying, man, English was a real challenge for me. And I remember I did it on the fifth occasion. And when I did it on the fifth occasion, you know, funny story, Dr. Links, when as it relates to this English thing, I remember when I did it in CXC the first time, I believe the government paid for it, or I
Mhm.
think it was NCB or one of those banks.
Right. NCB at that time, yes.
I think they paid for the first time I did it. I think the second time my mom paid for me to do the receipt. The third time, I believe, I think my dad from Jamaica is reaching out to me. Um, because I think he probably just got back light. Um, Dad, I'm gonna call you back. I'm on a call. I'm on a program. All right, soon give you a call back. All right, so I guessing my dad is okay. So I'm glad for that. He's in Clarendon, so he was affected greatly. I'm assuming because
Yes.
I wasn't able to get to him just now. He's giving me a call. So basically, what I'm saying is that I was on the CXC thing. I'm still on CXC, right?
Yes.
So basically, what happened is that my mom paid for it one time. NCB, my dentist friend paid for it once. My godmother paid for it the fourth time, and the fifth time, guess who paid for it the fifth time?
You.
I paid for it the fifth time, and I couldn't afford to waste the money, because it was wasted in the other four attempts. So I did the syllabus, and because I had four sittings, I had the experience of the multiple choice. And one of the things they said to me was I wasn't expressing myself, uh, uh, you know. And I was trying to figure out what it means to really express, because they would say you have knowledge of English, but you're not expressing yourself. So I started doing a research how to express myself, how to use my adverbs, the boy run quickly and stuff like
Yes.
that. And that was a transition for me. So I eventually passed. Even when I passed English language, I believe they had pity on us, because the year in which I passed English language, Dr. Links, was, I don't remember if you remember that year when they had the Tivoli incursion. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of persons
Yes.
were not mentally prepared to do their exams because of all that was happening. So I believe the CXC persons who marked the paper were lenient that year. So that's how I felt I was able to pass English. Fast forward now to the first time, as I said, I got three CXC subjects. And I went ahead and overall, I know I have six subjects. I went
Yes.
to community college. Even when I was going to community college, Dr. Links, I was studying accounting. So I wasn't thinking about radio, wasn't thinking about broadcasting. I was studying accounting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about the transition. I'm going to get to Canada. So I was doing accounting. I did an associate degree in business studies. I have an accounting major. I'm very good with numbers, Dr. Links. I can solve problems. If you give me algebra, I remember when I was doing math in CXC, I didn't do the circle theory and all of these things. I just did the algebra section. That first section there on the math paper, that's what
I
I did.
just do math to pass it, not to talk about it. That's it. Just to,
Yeah. So pretty much I was
just
always
to get a pass and forget it. Everything after that, if you ask me 10 minutes after I'm through with the exam, I can't tell you. I just do it to pass it.
yeah.
That's it.
So growing up, my mom, they always say to me, like my other friends always said I was weird. They usually call me math brain. My head was a little bit bigger at that time, not sure. Or maybe my body wasn't all that big now to match up with my head. So I used to have some nicknames. They call me Edmundo. So I used to have a brain to deal with numbers. I love tackling, um, you know, different things. And I've realized that, you know, that same characteristic of solving problems, not crumbling under pressure. No, you know, you're managing a radio station. I've worked at Gospel JFM in the past where I was a broadcast technician, or I've worked at Love FM where I was a technical operator where I had to deal with problems, you know, I had to troubleshoot, and I had to, you know, have that level of composure not to panic under pressure. So fast forwarding now to going to college, studying accounting, wasn't thinking about radio. But where it all started, man of God, was when I was rejected from a position at the Bank of Jamaica. So I was
Wow.
in line to work at the Bank of Jamaica in the currency department, but because of this thing here, why my mouth was because I taught myself into a job and I taught myself out of a job. So
Wow.
I remember I got the job at the Bank of Jamaica and they told me that, you know, they're going to send me to do a police record and they're going to send me to do a medical. But when I went to the medical, I told the lady everything, all of the things that I've encountered medically. And unfortunately, I wasn't given the job because, you know, I was going to handle money, the currency. And they said that, you know, the dust of the money could affect me because I told the doctor that, you know, I had an encounter with some dust and, you know, it's a long story that I could go on and on speaking about
Right.
transitions. So I was turned down from working at the Bank of Jamaica. I already resigned my secular job at the Ministry of Health, working as a payroll officer. Wasn't thinking about radio again, and so working as a payroll officer, Dr. Links, I realized that, you know, I was always good at calculating people's salary, calculating my salary. I know about fortnightly, monthly, weekly, anything has to do with salary, anything to do with, calculating your taxes, your education tax, income tax. So I was always good with these things. But what happened, Dr. Links, was I was unemployed for a period. And during my time of unemployment, I was a Christian. I was going to the Lighthouse Assembly over there in Jamaica under the leadership of Bishop R.J. Edwards. And I remember one night he texted me, Dr. Links, and he said to me, Rasheen, I want you to come and volunteer at the church. And volunteerism is important for those who know about church and serving in a ministry. It's not just getting up overnight and saying that you want to have a title being a minister, but you have to put in the work.
Yes, sir.
I remember inviting me, Dr. Links, to come to church to serve, to learn about editing his radio program. So he brought me into his office, and I remember he told me to record something on the microphone, and I remember recording something that I did, you know, like the scripture that I love, found there in Zechariah chapter 4 verse 6, where it says, "Not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of God." Something to do with Zerubbabel. You know that.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And there's so many things. I don't want to be going all over the place. I just want to fast forward to the point where I said that I was rejected from working at the Bank of Jamaica. So that's where the transition started,
Hmm.
where I started volunteer at the church. And after volunteering at the church, I realized that I started having a love for editing audio, and I started editing my bishop's radio program. At some point, he started telling me that he wanted me to start recording for the church. I started now being the church announcer. So
Hmm.
he saw something in me that I did not see in myself. So I give God thanks for him that he gave me that opportunity to start editing his radio program. And since I started editing his radio program, Dr. Links, I remember I was working at another place where I was still doing payroll because, as I said, my qualifications is in accounting. I'm good with numbers and all of that thing. But
Right.
because of serving in the church. And I want those who are watching and those who don't like church work. And I always say to people, church work is one of the hardest work. Don't see it as something, don't underestimate church work. And a lot of times there's this debate, you can probably speak about it on another show, where persons have this debate whether or not you should be compensated for doing church work, but sometimes church work becomes harder than even your very secular work, that which you do 9 to 5. So I've realized over the years that after doing my 9 to 5 shift, I would leave my 9 to 5 job and I'll come to the church, come to my bishop's office, and I'll be there editing his radio program, doing his program for Love FM, doing his program for Gospel JA. Now, after a while, he promoted me to start being the church announcer. So I started announcing, doing the introduction for his program, and persons started listening to radio, and they said, "Who is that young man introducing Bishop's radio program?" I started coming on Love FM, started coming on Gospel JFM. Didn't know that I was sowing a seed, in being a part of these two stations. I've worked at both of stations, and I give God thanks for that opportunity. I was even sharing some pictures on my status. It's like everything is just all about the transition. So let's
Yes.
fast forward now to Rushane Douglas, editing my Bishop's radio program. I believe I was working at Edna Manley College at the time. Yes, I was working at Edna Manley College, and I was on my way to work one morning, Dr. Links, and I heard this advertisement on Gospel JFM that they were searching for some talented radio announcers. And I'm saying, I don't have the qualifications in announcing. I said, let me give it a try. Let me give it a try. So I eventually applied for the job, and, I was called in to do an interview. And when I came on the day, Dr. Links, I saw people like you who speak very well and,
Yeah.
are very eloquent. And I'm saying, and I heard persons, pronouncing the words properly, and coming
All
from
the rounding.
yeah, the rounding of the words, and I'm saying, God, these people are qualified for this position. Why am I here among these great people? I saw persons who, when I heard them speaking, they said, "Hey, I have a degree in mass communications, and I don't have a degree, and I've never done mass communication before." So all I knew about was church work. Let me put it that
Yes.
way. So all I
Yes.
knew about was just serving in the ministry. So I remember when I went to the interview, Dr. Links, I was dressed in a three-piece suit. I
Yes,
had a
sir.
I had a black pants on, a black vest. I remember it was a white shirt with a green tie, and I
In
said,
that heat.
yeah, I was dressed because I said to myself, this is my job. And
Yes, sir.
I remember when I was asked about, what would you bring to this station? And I said, you know what, I believe that when I'm given this job, I'll bring a transformation to this station. And the gentleman realized I was from Bishop Rowan Edwards Church. So he
Mhm.
called my pastor and asked him about, I saw a young man that came to the interview, and he's not qualified. He doesn't have any experience. What can you tell me about this young man? And my bishop said to him, just give him the job, man. Just give him the job.
Yeah.
And and the manager said, "You sure, Bishop? If anything goes wrong, I'm gonna put it back on you to say that you're the one who told me to give this young man the job." And ever since I've gotten the job, I wasn't all that perfect, Dr. Links. I was like,
Mhm.
you take a madman off the street and put him behind a radio, a microphone, and I was making errors, numerous errors upon top of errors. But my boss had the last straw when he told me one day, Rashane, I need you they put me on pause, because what happened was that I was sitting in for Abigail Blair. For those who know Abigail Blair, her program normally comes after my program. And I remember one day, I believe she was late, or I'm not sure if she was. I think she was coming in, but she was coming in late. So I was sitting in for her maybe for the first hour or so. And I remember it was at about 10:50. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was nervousness, because going into Abigail's program is like, is a very
Yes.
huge,
She has a big
shows,
audience.
and
Yes.
the audience is there. That anxiety that I had, and I remember I said to myself, Dr. Links, you know what I said at the time. I'm trying to. I remember I said 50 minutes after 10 o'clock. And normally, whenever it gets at, say, for example, 10:30, you can't say after. You have to
Yes.
say 10 minutes to 11 o'clock. So I remember on national radio, I said
50
50
after
minutes, 10 o'clock, and that
10.
was the last straw for my boss. And he reached out to me and he sent me an email and he said, "I'm going to put you on mute." So so I was muted on public radio for 5 months. I wasn't able to come on and do devotions. I wasn't able to speak freely. I had to come on and just do time signals. And if I'm introducing a program, I had to have a script in front of me. And I remember I had to go to school to learn how to pronounce words. I signed up for this course called Voice and Speech. And when I went to do the voice and speech, Dr. Links, they told me that I was way below the level of voice and speech. I had to do what is called uh, oral fluency, because I did an audition, and when I did the audition, I was below the level of voice and speech. So I had to do
Right.
oral fluency, where I learned how to pronounce word endings.
Right.
Because I used to growing up. I grew up in the garrison, Dr. Links. That's another transition as well. I had to
Mhm.
move from the garrison into a resident. Some people call it a scheme in Jamaica. For those who understand what I mean. But what happened is that I had to do voice and speech, and when I did the voice and speech, I learned how to pronounce H words. In Jamaica, we normally
You
take
remove the H. Yeah.
word, each of the H words, and
Yeah.
we add H to
To the
the other
A word.
the
Yes, where it's
vowel,
not supposed to be apple.
apple,
We remove it. Heg. So
and egg,
yes,
egg.
we put it in front of vowel where it doesn't
Yeah.
belong.
So it has been a journey. It has been a journey. I've always had this love for set. I remember the first time I saw that gentleman, like the cable man, come to my house, and he hooked up the cable, and we were watching cable television. And I said to myself, Dr. Links, I said to my mom, I said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a cable man. And my mom said, not so, because she's not sending me to high school. She's not sending me all through school to become a cable man. But I didn't know that I now become an engineer. So I deal
Yes,
with cables.
yes,
Because of serving in a ministry, I learned how to announce church programs. And from editing my bishop's radio program, he was able to give a recommendation to say, "Hey, this
you
young man
do
is
the
very
job.
hardworking. He's committed. Just give him the job."
Yes.
And I yeah, go ahead, Dr. Leaks. Go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
mean, what you're saying is really so powerful, and I really want to put it in perspective for our listeners, and what you're saying, which is very powerful, is that you start in the church. And because the Bible said, whatever you find your hands to do, do it, and do it with all your might. And so here it is that you have been doing it, serving diligently with your pastor and for your bishop, just putting his program together, doing the little edits and doing the little stuff. And you didn't know that while you're doing that, you are learning and you're developing and you're becoming who you are, because the Lord have a way to push us into our purpose without we even knowing. And sometimes it is that it's people that is around us that he'll will help us to identify our purpose and really push us there. And so look from where you have started, and just they're hearing you because you're now doing your pastor's program, and they hear, who is this voice? And that introduce you to radio, and that has kickstart your career, and has put you now where you have learned so much, and from accounting to in media and engineering and so forth. So we're talking about life transition, and this all started when you were rejected from the job that you think, this is my life passion,
The
this is
green
where
job.
I'll end up, yeah, at the Bank of Jamaica in my suit and tie, and this is where it all happened. And so we're talking about transition and managing the transition. Of course, we're talking with Minister Roshane, a radio station manager here at HGG Radio. We're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll return. And of course, we'll continue the conversation. So stay with us. Keep it locked and loaded. HEG Radio, number one for gospel in Edmonton. We'll be right back.
You belong on higher ground.
Get ready for a life-changing experience. Join Higher Ground Tabernacle Ministries for our Holy Convocation 2024, starting July 5 to 7. Under the theme, We Have Not Passed This Way Before, taken from Joshua 3, 1 to 10. Come listen dynamic speakers, Elder Nicholas Chambers and Elder Bonito Grange. Join us in person at 3601 118 Avenue, Northwest Edmonton.
Thank you for staying with us here on the Ironman Empowerment Podcast, HGG Radio's Ironman Empowerment Podcast. And of course, we want to thank you, of course, for joining us. Thank you for tuning in and being here with us. We want to thank those, of course, who are with us here. We're going to say good morning to Mabet Hemmings. Good morning, and thank you for joining in. Telma Brown, of course, from Tabernacle of Love in Brooklyn, New York. Rev Marsha Ben said, Mighty God, tried by fire, fulfill purpose as God intended. And Reverend Carl Brown, the man behind the brand, Khalil's Attitude. He said, "Trust me, the church is a good place to start. My first experience on radio was doing my church program, Gospel Come Alive. Years later, I hosted my own radio program." So, of course, a lot of persons are sharing in this sentiment. We want to welcome to the program Elder Edmund Muir. Good morning, Elder Muir. We'll bring you in to welcome our listeners. Good morning, sir. And Pastor Clive is also joining us. Good morning, Pastor Clive. Welcome to the program.
Bless you.
Elder
Good
Muir.
morning. Good morning, everyone. Morning, listeners. God bless you all.
Good morning. Of course, they're just joining in. I think they seem to have too much fun and too much worship and everything on last night in convocation. The kickstart last night. Talk to us real quick, Elder Muir, about last night, and we'll continue into transition.
Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. Bryan. Last night's service was really an awesome one. We had Elder Bonita Grange. He brought the word for us, and a powerful theme indeed. For we have not been this way before. There's so many things that we can take away from this powerful theme, and I believe that we're only warming up for what God is about to do in our midst. It will be a blessing. So I invite you out to 3601 118 Avenue. Join us in our holy convocation. If you're struggling with issues, whatever your life situation, circumstances, wherever you are in your life, in your transitional stages, come on out, join us and see God move in your life. It promises to be very powerful. God bless you all.
Amen. God bless you. God bless you. For those who are just tuning in, we are talking about managing transitions. We're talking about life transition. Or of course, we're talking with Minister Rashane. He was telling us about, his transition to where he is now, how he got started, how he get into radio, where he is now, even in Canada, and where things have started. And so we're talking, having the conversation. And so we're truly grateful. Pastor Clive is with us, Pastor Elder Muir is with us, and we're going to come back. Reverend Rashane, I want to ask a question as Elder Muir is coming in fresh as we hear your story. I want to find out from Elder Muir, in your experiences, sir, what are some of the misconceptions about transition? Because a lot of time people has to go through that transition and they cry, Reverend Rashane, and they say, "Oh, the Lord don't like me. I think God has something against me. Why is it that I have to be going through all of this?" And all those different things that happen during our period of transition. What are some of the misconceptions you will say, Elder Muir, about transition, and how we'll address those?
Thank you one more time, Dr. Bryan. Throughout the history of humankind, we have seen various types of transition, or shall I say changes. And one thing that I've heard consistently is that many of these changes are very hard, can be very hard. But I believe that it is not so, because if a person understands what it is to go through certain or various transitions, and that person can plan for the transition. I mean, for example, if you're changing job, that's a transition. If you're changing where you live, your location, geographical location, that's a transition. Teenagers go through transitions from childhood right through to adulthood. And many times what I've seen is that it becomes a struggle to them. But if those groups, especially teenagers, have a person or persons to guide them, if there is a net around them to bring them to the place that there should be, then these teenage years wouldn't be so hard. So the major misconception about transition is that it is hard. Yeah. And so we find that many people don't like change or transitionary moments. But I want to tell you that it is transitions that launches you into greatness, or puts you in places where you can experience what God would have for you. Of course, many transitions are not comfortable, but what it leads a person to do is to adjust themselves. It brings in a certain level of flexibility that sometimes you don't even know that you had. right? So it brings out the best in you rather than trying to bring out the worst in you. So transitions don't bring out the worst, but transitions actually brings out the best in you as an individual. And so we have to appreciate the role that transition plays in our lives. If I, for example, did not go through the things that I did in the past, I would not be the man that I am today. It is a transitioner. You know what they say about men? That men go through phases of bridges, quote unquote bridges. If if the man finds himself in a spot where finances are not there, he goes through a bridge. If a man find himself at a certain age, mid age crisis, that's a bridge. If he loses someone he loves, that's the bridge. But then that bridge is the source that, let me go back. The Lord uses difficult situations to launch his people. He uses situations of oppression. Let's go back to the children of Israel. They were oppressed, and God uses that to pull them out of the land of sin. So as we go through these transitions, I want persons to recognize also that there are opportunities in transition. So the transition don't come necessarily to take away, but to give. So we have to understand that transitions will allow you to gain. Gain what, you might ask. I remember growing up in the 80s, we had Hurricane Gilbert. And I recognize that people lost so much things. But then there were persons that used that as an opportunity to elevate themselves financially. And so my take is, in transition, you will always have to look for the opportunities. So transitions also create opportunities for individuals. I will pause.
Yes, powerful. Thank you, Elamior. Pastor Kenyatta McLeish over there in Florida. He says transition can be one of the most difficult and most fulfilling. It brings us out of our comfort zone rather. Through transition, you will develop critical survival skills. Pastor Clive, talk to me on this. Transitions, how does it help one to, as Pastor Ken is mentioning, that it bring us out of our comfort zone. Through transition you will develop critical survival skills. How does transition will help you in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of going through your periods, your challenges, your life's challenges? How does it help you then to develop that critical survival skills?
Oh, wow. Good. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. Links,
Morning, sir.
Minister Douglas, and Elder Edmund Muir. Good question this morning. It's transition has never been easy. Um, it is very challenging, but if it is God that is taking you from one dimension to the other, it's easier. Oftentimes you may not see where you're going to go. Minister Douglas is like, when I think about a transition, I'm thinking about Abraham, and where Abraham would have in his comfort zone, if you will, and God would have taken him out of a comfort zone and thrust him out and said, "Come out of your country, out of your kindred." When you are shoved or pushed out of your comfort zone, and it's God that's doing it, or it's God that is leading you, it becomes easier than you pursuing just after your own goals and your own dream and your own aspirations. But when it is God that is actually leading you, and you know that He's leading you even in a tough time, I'm
Yes.
telling you, you're going to hold on because you know that thou art with me. You know that it is God that is, keeping you, because it's not, if it wasn't for God, pack up and said, "This is it. I'm done. I learned my lesson, Lord. I did it on my own." But when God is doing all of this, and you're going through a narrow path and trials and stuff, you know that you're going to be under attack. You're going to be things are going to happen to you that you know what that wouldn't normally happen. So transition is never easy, but
Yes.
you have God on your side. You need to understand this that God will keep you. And I love the scripture said, "No one to him that is able to keep you from far." God will keep you as He keep the fresh fish in
Yes.
salt water. So
Yes. Able to
transition,
keep.
like I hear Minister Douglas was talking about, his transition. I remember as a young man, I was 23 years old when I came to Canada, turning 24. It's been what, almost 26 years ago. Um, it wasn't easy. I was a young man in a small world, in a small little country. For me, coming to Canada was a big world. And when I came, I had my son. He was 3, turning 4, and it was a big transition. And
Yes.
when I came to look at life, and transition at times will not make you feel comfortable.
Yes.
It's going to give you some discomfort. But as I said earlier, at the end of the day, if it is God that is leading you, trust me, even though the thing is not favorable to you or you don't feel comfortable, God always help you to navigate yourselves.
Yes.
That's why it's important to allow the Lord to lead you. It's important for you to allow God to choose for you and your path. And when you as a person have a desire for certain things, you don't know, just take it upon yourself and say, "Boy, I desire this, and I don't need to pray." Still seek the face of the Lord so that God Himself can say, "Go." Just like David. David is a David know that God is a man of war. But
Mm-hmm.
David, in coming back to Ziklag, find Ziklag burned down. He could
Mm-hmm.
have said, call the men them and said, "Yo, let's go, let's go." In Jamaica term, mash up the place. Let's go find them, right? But he sought the Lord. Said, "Should I go? Should I pursue?" When you're in a place or when you've been trying to transition or when you're trying to move forward or when you're trying to, establish yourself, whether it's being, your physical life or your spiritual life, always seek the face of
Of
God.
God.
So that
Thank
when
you, sir.
you as a person come up on a roadblock, the Lord will give you uh that navigation,
Yes.
wisdom to say, turn left now, turn right, and you will find yourself where you ought to be.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor Clive. Reverend Carl Brown says, never miss, rather, the grace granted for each session of transition, which I believe the Lord always grant us that grace, even in that period, even in the midst of that transition. Good morning to you, Reverend Ray McHugh over there in Manchester, New York. He's saying to us, never miss that grace, because I believe even in transition, Brother Rushin, there is a grace that the Lord, that's keeping power, that grace that the Lord will grant us. And one of the things in transitions that we must also understand is the ability to pivot, to make a move, to change, because sometimes we are stuck in what we know. And Brother Rasheen really open up with that pivoting there, that you have to learn to pivot where one thing don't work. And I'll share a bit from my experience coming to Canada. I started out in tourism and hospitality. That's where I was qualified at degrees there. I've studied to the highest professional designation, everything, and worked for Sandals Resorts for many years. And coming to Canada, I'm coming from a resort background, tourism and hospitality, and moving here, I realize it's more hotel and not resort. And so when you come, it's a total different ball game. The salary that you'll make down there is not as much that you'll make here, because of course it's a bigger market in the Caribbean, and all inclusive doesn't live outside of the Caribbean. And so it was a huge transition. And so when I came here, I realized that when I'm down there, because I go to church and they know me as a minister, they wouldn't allow me to work on Sundays. Here, they don't really care about that. And so that again was another transition. So all those privileges and everything were gone. And so very quickly, I've learned that that will not work for me. This market is different. This place is different. And what I did, instead of complaining, I took the opportunity that I can get to do some work. And while I'm there, because now I'm like, I'm finished studying, I have a tourism degree, I'm good, I did all my professional accreditation. And I said, all right, I've got to pivot. Somebody make a connection for me, got me into the bank at an entry level position. And I always believe that we must qualify ourselves where favor puts us. And so I got that favor and got into the bank. And I said, I need to qualify myself where favor put me. And instead of saying I already have a degree, I went back and did a business degree. Went back, do a business degree, start to move up within the bank, start studying a master's, a degree in business again, continue to grow. And so we must be able to pivot. And so what happened there is I did a total career shift. Even, and this is after I've been married, have my child. I didn't have my second daughter yet, and I did a career shift. Total shift, mid-level. So it's almost like mid-air. You're doing a whole different 180. And so it's very important that we pivot and we learn to pivot and not be stuck into what we know and just say, this is what I know. But I also believe in being multifaceted. The Lord did not call us to be one-dimensional. We must be multifaceted. So you must be qualified in different area, or even some experience in different area. So if you don't work one place, listen, the skills that you would have learned, the skills that you would have garnered in one position or one place is able to be transferable in another place. Find those transferable skills, those life skills, because life teach you some stuff. Pastor Kenyatta said it's through transition that you develop critical survival skills. And when it gets tough is when you learn those survival skills will come out. When your mother would teach you how to settle for what you have and not hang your hat where you can't reach it. And now you're really seeing what they're talking about. Those inner skills that said, I am going to make this. I know it's tough. I know funds are low. I know we don't have this, but I am going to be able to push past and push through. So those survival skills, those word, those know-how, those of course will now start to come out of you, and you will see that you're better. I remember one time I've been, financially low. My wife was studying here and I was working and doing things, and I felt broke. I just felt defeated, like there's not much money coming through. And I went in the mall and Scotiabank was running a promotion. And then I walk in it, Scotiabank said, you are richer than you think. And if you ever know, when I read that sign, my faith, I know Scotia was just telling you how to, because they're finding the wealth that is in your money. And I am in finance. I know what they're saying. They're telling you that there's always wealth. We call it wealth within your money. And it's to find those little crevices where you can spend that extra $20 and become wealth. But when I walk in that bank, when I walk in the mall, rather, and it was on the outside that says, you are richer than you think. In my moment of defeat, I remember who my father is, that a cattle on 1,000 hill belong to him. I remember that I am a royal priesthood. I remember that my father is rich with houses and lands.
That's
And
right.
right there in that minute, when I'm supposed to be defeated, that sign lift me up. You are richer than you think. And I start to operate like somebody owe me something. I start to operate like I'm expecting a check. I'm telling you, I start to operate in a total different dimension that almost sometimes I have to catch myself to say, who owe me? But who am I waiting? I'm waiting for a check from where? But because I'm telling myself, you are richer than you think. You have more than you think. And I start to tap into my inner faith. And that is what pulled me out of my place that I'm in, because I'm going through a transition. Now, one other thing I want to ask you, Reverend Russian, because transition is tough, and there are persons who have lost their minds in transition. There are persons who may have lost family members, have lost their jobs, have lost their homes in the transition period. And I believe that God is speaking. How do we pause during this turmoil to hear God? Talk to me, Brother Rasheen.
I had to turn the fan on because, of course, everybody knows it's warm now here in Canada. That's another transition. Transition from that -40 now to almost 30 degrees. All right. So, how do I pause? How do I hear God in all of these things? Let me give you a scenario, Dr. Links. I remember as a young Christian, I've always had challenges. And every Christian should know that the road is not easy. and you will encounter challenges. So don't tell people. Sometimes we sell this thing that, when you become a Christian, everything is gonna be okay and everything is gonna be all right. So one thing I've learned over the year, you have to be consistent in doing what God has called you to do, regardless of the season that you're in, regardless of the conditions that you face. Because my bishop back home in Jamaica, he says your circumstances cannot be compared to your purpose. So sometimes we use our circumstances to say, hey, we're not gonna pray anymore, we're not gonna seek God anymore. So one thing I've learned over the years, Dr. Links, is that even when I'm going through something, I'm still ministering to people. When I don't have any food in my fridge or anything in my cupboard, or things are on a low, I don't have anything financially, I'm telling people that God is able to provide for you, God is able to make ways for you. And I'm just sharing this secret for those who listen to me in the mornings. There are days when I'm going through stuff, Dr. Links, and I'm there ministering to people, and I say to them, oh, there's a man who is listening right now. You're going through a family crisis. You can't pay the bills in your home. The Lord says He's gonna, provide all that you need. And I'm speaking to me. That's the man. I'm the man that's listening, because I'm
Yes.
ministering to myself.
Yes. But you have to, because you have to minister to you first. And a lot of time people don't know that while we are encouraging them, we're also encouraging ourselves. Isn't that
Amen.
true?
Amen.
Yes.
That's true. So it goes to show you that during that period where, another thing I always say to my listeners, don't believe that because you're in the will of God, everything is gonna be nice and roses are red and violets are blue. Because I've been here in Canada. I wanted to get to the Canada point. Now I'm here in Canada, right? Today is the 6th of July. And I came here approximately 2 years ago on the 6th of July. If I can bring my boarding pass, I could show it. It's now today's marking 2 years since
Yeah.
I've made the transition to
Happy
Canada here.
anniversary.
So I said to myself, God is speaking to you, Dr. Links, when you reached out to me yesterday when you asked me to be here. But what I'm saying is that don't allow, don't, or put it this way, you have some persons who, because they hear about going to foreign, they leave God at the airport at Norman Manley Airport or Donald Sangsters or whichever airport you're coming from. Persons believe that you're going to foreign, so now you're gonna be a different person. You're gonna wear. Even I'm here in Canada and I don't even buy clothes, and I'm in Canada. People will say that they're in foreign and you can't shop. You have all of these big malls and all of these things. I've learned how to just be content.
Yes.
I've learned that hearing the voice of God is more important than
Right.
having money in the bank. You know, Knowing that you're in the will of God, it gives you that peace. So even when you're in the turmoil, and sometimes people see you coming on radio and people see you ministering and you're smiling and you're putting on the best, you're putting your best self out there, but you're really going through stuff. But that should not stop you from praying and listening to the voice of God. And don't allow, because things are happening now, you're gonna just shut down. Working here at HGG Radio, we have faced a lot of transitions over the short period that we have been here, and there are days when I said to myself, the weight is too heavy. And I thank God for you, Dr. Ling. So I said to somebody that coming here on a Saturday morning is a morning, it's like a sacred morning for me. Monday to Friday, I wake up every morning early from 5 o'clock or sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, seeking God for a word. I know it's a Saturday morning. That's the time when I said, I can stay late in bed. I still monitor the Iron Man from time to time. You guys still call me sometime when something goes wrong. But for the most part, based on the system that we have now, everything seems to go smooth at least 85% of the time. But what I'm basically saying is that me being here this morning, I had to, because it's you, Dr. Links. If it was somebody else asked me to come on, I would probably tell them no. But
You hear
because
that, Pastor Clive?
no,
Good thing it's me.
but because of your resilience, I've seen where you have been resilient, Dr. Links. Even this morning, the reason why I went into my story, I was looking, I didn't see Pastor Clive, I didn't see Elder Muir. I said, let me just slow it down a little bit. And
Yeah.
these things come with experience. Sometimes you're working in the studio and something goes wrong, and I'll be there and saying, "Hey, listeners, good morning. I hope you're doing well." And the problem is there, and I'm fixing the problem while I'm there talking to them, just trying to. So person should not be exposed to your problem. Don't have a pity party. Don't,
Yes.
I remember even Pastor Clive came into church one Sunday or a couple Sundays. He was sad. And I was there seeing Pastor Clive sitting sad. He was sad because he had a surgery and he wasn't able to run up and down and dance, what he's always accustomed to doing. But
Yes.
don't allow, and I know that because of the surgery, at some point I saw where he could not contain himself. But what I'm saying is that don't allow life's challenges to stop you from seeking God. And it's important for us to always commit ourselves to God, regardless of what's happening around us, regardless of the transitions. So, again, going back to the point, Dr. Links, don't leave God at the airport. Don't say, okay, I'm going to a foreign country, nobody knows me. You'll be surprised. Even God knows you wherever you go. He's
Yes.
omnipresent. If you go to Canada, if you go to America, if you go all the way to Alaska, and funny enough, everywhere you go in the world, there's always a Jamaica. When you think that you're the only one that's making the transition, somebody else is making that transition with you. God is watching you, and God is watching you when you have the little. When you have the little, take care of the little. Give God thanks for the little. I've seen even recently, I had a car and God just opened up a door, caused somebody to hit my car. And then all of a sudden, insurance gives me money, and the insurance money that I got from my car, I use that to buy a better car. And I wasn't preparing. When I got met in the accident, I would have been one of those persons who would have said, God, look how you made this happen to me. But I didn't know that God was transitioning me from one vehicle to another vehicle without me even thinking about it. So that's why it's important for us to keep our minds focused on God and the things of God, even when you just have to be early for church. Sometimes we use excuses. Why is it that the believers, we go to church work early every day, and as soon as it comes to Sunday church, nobody wants to get to church early? We say, oh, we're tired. And so there's so many things I could go on when it comes on to transitions, about managing your transitions, about not, don't allow. Basically what I'm saying in a nutshell, I think I talk a lot because this is my field, as you would have known. Basically what I'm saying is that don't allow circumstances to change who you are. Don't panic. I've been working with Pastor Clive, and I've seen where he has made efforts to make me feel comfortable being here, because it's not a comfortable transition, because it was easy for me in Jamaica. Everybody knew me in Jamaica when I was working on radio. You knew me from Love FM, they know me from Gospel JA. So it was easy for me. But now I'm coming into a country where, as Dr. Ling said, I had to start from scratch. I come here to Edmonton. A lot of persons probably don't know that I can MC a show or I can do this, but I have to allow the process, to allow the transition. Don't force things on people. When you come into a new environment, you have to observe. You have to, pay your dues. A lot of times people just want to jump in the middle of things, and they don't spend times to commit themselves. So that's just basically it in a nutshell. I really don't want to talk a lot. I could speak on and on about this transitional thing. Over to you, Dr. Links. Oh, you're muted, Dr. Links. Unmute your mic.
Yes, thank you. We do appreciate your input. This is really, really powerful, because I'm sure we're helping a lot of people here this morning. We're going to take our second break, and we'll come right back. We'll come back with Elder Edmund Muir as we continue to have the discussion about transition and how we manage those transitions. Stay right here with us on HEG Radio and Man Empowerment Podcast.
Hey, the Saturday Hub is back online on HGG Radio. Come join me, Auntie Renee, at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, and 12 noon Eastern Time. It's gonna be a great celebration. Children, you don't wanna miss it.
Thank you for staying with us.
Activate Core presents its annual virtual book tour from June 29th to August 31st. Join 30 authors from different countries and different genres as we traverse the virtual spaces of YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, WeChat, and many others. Join in our live radio interviews, webinars, and book reading activities. Share in our stories of hope with families and friends on the HGG Gospel Radio Station in Canada. Contact us at activatecore7@gmail.com for more information. See you online.
That's the virtual book tour live right here on HGG Radio, July 1st to August 9th, Mondays and Fridays, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, inside the Morning Flow with Pastor Odette Thompson. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you for staying with us here on the Iron Man Empowerment Podcast. Thank you. We're talking about transitions and managing those transitions. If you're just joining us, we say thank you for being here with us, and we say a pleasant good morning to you. Thank you, Pastor Kenyatta, who said rebuilding in transition. Masha Ben said, don't leave God. Don't leave God. Allow God to trust you with little, and He'll make you ruler over many. Pastor Ray McHugh said, thank the Lord for little. Paulette Nash, good morning to you, Paulette. Paulette Nash says, a sound word. Glory be to God. Thank you to all our listeners who are tuning in from near and far. Of course, we want to thank you for being here with us. Pastor Elder Edmund Muir, we're coming to you. And I want to ask you, because, I was mentioning earlier how transition can really affect us and even affect our mental stability or mental health. And I want you to help somebody who are dealing with transition. And I want to ask the question, how do you prioritize self-care, even in the midst of everything that is happening? How do you prioritize self-care and mental health during this significant change? Because I know how it can affect us. So how do you prioritize it in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the transition, in the midst of the turmoil? How do you prioritize self-care?
Delve into self-care. I wanted to chime in when Pastor Clive was speaking, because I recognize that there's something about what he said where Abraham is concerned. Abraham, he believed God. So despite what comes his way, his belief would have still been the same. And I recognize that he went into a new territory. And that new territory meant that he was moving into God's promises. One thing I believe listeners can always be affirmed about is that when you go into transitions, when we enter into these stages, it will challenge our faith. It will challenge the possibilities of you achieving what you ought to achieve. And therefore, having this in mind, a person will definitely know that, listen, I'm not going to allow this to cause me to be stressed. You are in any stage of transition, you have to make up in your mind that you're not going to be stressed. Even Joseph, when he was in prison, he said, remember me. Just say, tell the king something about me, because he was focused. His mind was like, I knew that God, he knew that God would have taken him through this process. It is easy when we look on the situations, when we look on the mud sometimes that we're in, it can be sticky. But the Bible says that we should lean not to our own understanding. And in all our ways, we should acknowledge God. Mm-hmm. So when you're going through, people, you're listening, you're hearing from near and far. When you're going through your transition, trust God. This transition was never meant to kill me, but it was meant to build me. Whatever it is, you have to trust God, because it comes down to the mind, the devil plays around with our mental state, Dr. Bryan. Yes, because the Bible says it is through the mind that we serve Christ. Yes. And he will put things in our way for our minds to be warped. In other words, our faith dwindles and it brings us to a state of panic. But then the Bible also says in Philippians, be anxious for nothing, but in everything. In prayer and thanksgiving, let our requests be made known unto God. And this God that we pray to, this God that we ask, he will give us, oh God Almighty, the good desires of our hearts. So in order to guard ourselves, self-care, we have to exercise faith in Jesus Christ and his saving grace.
Powerful.
If we don't do that, we will be broken men, broken women. We will find ourselves in places that we would refer to as depressed. So we have to allow our faith to be upon God. It doesn't seem like I'm going to get that money, but I believe God. And even if I don't get that money, I'm still believing that God is working it out. Because what? It is a process at times. And sometimes we just want it now or next week. But we have to understand that things are process. Sometimes God will take us through certain processes in order for us to understand how important it is to apply ourselves and watch carefully over the assets that He has entrusted us with. Trust God,
Yes.
believe God
Powerful.
through your transitions.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Elder Edmund Muir. That is really, really powerful. So he's saying, guard your mind, guard your heart, allow faith to be the driver. We understand faith, substance of things hoped for, the evidence not seen, but trust the Lord. Thank you so much. Sonia Ben said, transition is never easy, and it can affect our mindset so bad that we sometimes question if we're making the right move. But God always come through for us. And that's what we believe in also. Thank you so much, Shika Edwards, for being with us. And she said, thank you, brothers, for the inspirational story. I myself trying that field that works for me here in Canada as well, while managing motherhood and having a burning desire for ministry. Because as we said at the top, is that a lot of time persons think, and Minister Rasheen said, moving to a foreign country, a lot of people just think, oh, you're moving there and it's all roses and everything is nice and gloomy. But we must understand that it's like starting life all over again, and it do have its life challenges. And a lot of time we're doing it without even family members present with us that we can lean on a family member. It is those friends and so forth that the Lord would have put in our lives that will help us. And so it brings me to my next question, and I'm coming to you with this, Minister Rasheen, before I come back to Pastor Clive. I want to find out from you, as we mentioned, friend. Sometimes we move to a new space or a new country, new environment without that, person's family members that are really here. So my question is, even in the midst of it, how do you, my question, what role do support systems like families and even friends that are here, family maybe far, mentors, how, what role they play in a transitional journey, and how does the support system work for you there?
Well, let me use my example. When I just came here to Canada, I was by myself. My family wasn't with me at the initial stage. So I had to learn how to navigate without my wife being here and so on. So you know that part of it, you know. But I learned as somebody put something in the chat about when you're in the will of God, there's this grace that God gives you. So even
Yes.
when your family members are not around, it's like you have that grace to endure. But one thing I've learned since I've been here, there was a church brother, Minister Kirk. I remember we had a meeting recently, and I was speaking about that transition where I remember there are Sundays that I'm here. There's a gentleman that we used to share the same space, and I remember he would normally come and cook Sunday dinner. And there are times when my church brother, Minister Kirk, would invite me over to his house, and I usually love that moment because even though I'm coming on the radio the following morning, they invite me over for dinner every Sunday. So I didn't have to cook. And normally, whenever I'm leaving, they normally pack some plates up for me to have food so I can have it for the following day and so on. So the food part of it is important, having that support system, to help you to ensure that you're eating because most times you don't want to be in a foreign country and you're hungry. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is like moving around. Sometimes you don't have maybe like you're not mobile. You don't have a license, or maybe you're from a country where you used to be driving yourself. You have your nice car in Jamaica, and you're in a country now where there are times when you have to take the bus, and sometimes the bus is not reliable. So you might have a church brother or a church sister who would say, "Hey, you call him and say, okay, I need to go to the JP and get some documents. And they say, okay, I'll take you there. Or, maybe you're going to a banquet or something. And, one of your church brothers offer you a ride to take you to the banquet. So having that support system, I believe, during my transitional period, it was very good. And the fact that where the studio was located and where I was staying was on the same building. So at least I didn't have to think about going out in the cold, even though I still came out. Pastor Clive would have known the logistics behind that. I still have to come out maybe for those 5 or 10 seconds from coming out of my apartment and coming into the building. Maybe that 10 seconds, I still put on my gloves, I still put on my winter jacket and everything because I ain't messing with those -25 and -30 in the early morning. But God has been really, really good. Coming to higher ground, it's a family system why I was really attracted to this church here. And I heard Elder Muir speaking about self-care. For those who know me, my wife knows me very well. This is what I normally do most times. I know you guys not gonna see it because let me see if I can probably use another one. Use another one. This is what whenever you don't see me around preaching or reading the word, sometimes I'm playing games. I normally play FIFA. I normally watch football, like Premier League. For those who are Chelsea fans, I know Dr. Links is Liverpool, I believe.
Yes.
Um, but I love things like that. I pay the money. I remember I was paying for subscription, just to watch some football. Just that helps me to get my mind off the managing a ministry that's new. This is really a baby. HGG Radio is not. It's not a grown child that we can throw all over the place and or to leave anywhere, but we have to treat it like it's a baby. It's still in the infancy stage, and the impact that it's having, I really give God thanks for that. So what I'm basically saying, support system coming to higher ground, it's a family, that family structure. When you come here, persons are supporting each other. Whenever there's a party, you see the same people showing up for every party because of that support system. So I give God thanks for this ministry. Give God thanks for Pastor Clive, who is not like the normal pastor who sits down in an office and wait to be served. He's one of those pastors that's always serving. He's at the studio now, as you see. And behind the studio, there's a kitchen. I wish the camera could move. So Pastor Clive would have done his show from in the kitchen, showing us that he's seasoning up the chicken and all of these things are prepared. Pastor
Tomorrow
Clive
or later.
whip up a pot of soup. Dr. Link would have been here to Edmonton before. Um,
Yes.
but God
I,
is good.
I tell him to go to bed. Yes.
Pastor Clive, he never rests.
Yeah,
He's been
I tell
working.
him to go to bed.
I came to church yesterday early. I remember speaking to you on the phone, Dr. Links, and as soon as I came to church, I saw Pastor Clive working, and I'm saying, when does this man really take a break? He's
Yeah.
always just, not just being a regular pastor that's just sitting, but he's always putting his hands to the wheel. So I give God thanks for him, and I give God thanks for each and every member here at Higher Ground. And I have my uncle. My uncle is here as well, so that's good. When you have family members, that's one of the reasons why I moved to Edmonton. I have an uncle, so that's why I came here as well. So that's
Yes.
basically yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Pastor Clive. Always going. In fact, when I'm with him last year, I kept telling him to go to bed. I said go and get some rest, and he said, I have to do 2 more airport pickup. Yeah, he'll sit up and take a nap, and then he said, Rev, I just need 30 minutes and I'm good. And he just closed his eyes after 30 minutes. He said, I'm good again. So, so I thank God for him. Really, really a hard worker in ministry. One of those pastors that really serve. He don't bother. He serve. He get up, and by the time I'm up, he already done a radio show, cook a pot, this, that. I said, what time did you sleep? So we thank God for him. Pastor Clive, I'm coming to you with this because I'm sure, as we mentioned, the stuff that you would have already dealt with and have gained some experience on it. I want to ask you, how do you navigate the emotional aspect of transition, like grief and fear and the excitement? How you navigate this emotional part of transition? Because sometimes, transition, man, really beat you. How do you navigate it? And talk to somebody who have lost even a loved one and now have to pick up the broken pieces and to continue on life's journey. How do you navigate this aspect of it? Pastor Clive.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I've learned over the years to be still and just know that God is God. Don't get over anxious. When I read the Bible, that it says, "Be anxious for nothing."
Mhm.
So I learned in a in a time where you're going through this transition, just be still. Just God, what am I learning in all of this? Um, you know, I need to I need I need to I need to allow the lesson that I'm learning so that I can learn it. And also I need to be able to have a balance, because we don't want, because sometimes we're there cursing the devil, and I tell the devil, said that, oh, it's the devil doing this. And the Lord is like, you know what? Just ask me, what am I to learn in all of this? So in that transitional period in your life, it's never going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But when you know that God is on your side, trust me, I'm telling you, don't get anxious. Just relax. Take a deep breath. Go and pray. Seek the Lord. And oftentimes we go and we start to pray and just talking to God without listening to God,
Mhm.
where God is really speaking to us. But you know, prayer is not just just is you alone talking. It's not a
Not a monologue.
Yes, it's a
but
conversation,
it's
two way.
it's a dialogue where God is talking to you. Like the other day, I was just faced with some stuff, and and the stress is there, and I just go pray. And as soon as I kneel down to pray, is that the Lord just steps in and just started to speak to me, and all I could do is just like when I get up and say the benediction.
Because you hear before you even start talking, because the Lord like to talk. We
You
just don't like to listen.
yeah. So when you give yourself and when you give your life to the Lord, as I often say, you can't give your life to the Lord, but when you commit yourself to God
Mhm.
and say, God, this is it. Wherever He leads, trust the process. Trust the process. And the quicker you trust the process, the lesson will be learned. Because what I don't like, I don't like to learn the same lesson over and over and over and over again. So
Means you didn't
I
learn.
just submerge myself in His will. I says, Lord, if this is your will, if it's not your will, I'm easy to move on. I've never get attached to nothing. I don't have that type of personality where I get attached. If I'm doing something and it doesn't make sense, like, Lord, is this, you know, I'm not 100% sure. And everything that the Lord would have given to me, Dr. Lincoln, it's
Mhm.
like ideas just come in, like, this, do this, turn left, turn. When you're doing something and you want to know that you're not in the will of God, you realize that you're doing it and it's harder and harder and
Mhm.
harder and harder and harder. And you're saying to yourself, how in the world am I, the Lord would have said it. No, double check. Anything He gives you to do, He will make the provision for it to flow and to flow well.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Pastor Clive. Reverend Ray McHugh in New York, he says, moving to Rochester, New York, I cried. He said, had to start from scratch, change my career, went back to school, and had to work through seeing my dad starting a new church. Come to realize that this was a move of God. A lot of time transitions are very difficult. For me to get to Canada, I moved from Jamaica, served in Antigua, lived there for a while, from Antigua to Canada. And through every aspect, the Lord, I see how the Lord made connection. I was at one church, served for 5 years. And after I got married and went back to the church 2 weeks after bringing my wife to Antigua, I heard the Lord said, your time is up. My glory has departed, and it's now time for you to move. And I said, God, this don't make sense. This is the church I know. This is the family I know. The Lord said, look around and see if you see my glory. It wasn't long after that the church has stripped and come to nothing north. The Lord said it was time to move, and I made a move. Didn't know where we're going to go, but the Lord moved me to a new church. It is from that place that the Lord would connect me with a different pastor. The bishop from that church came and heard me preaching, and he said, have you preached in America before? And I said, no, sir, I've never been to America. He said, America need to hear you. What do you need? And I said, well, I'll need a visa. He said, that's no problem. I'll give you some documents and some letter. Go over there, and there's a 10-year visa for you. I need you in America by the next year. Within the next year, Pastor Clive, I was in America preaching and sharing the gospel. While I'm there, I met somebody. He said, I want to go to Canada. I want to see what Canada look like. I always desire to live there. He said, what do you need to go? I said, I don't have a visa. He said, I'll let you come. And while in the middle of that, I was in Antigua. I went back to Antigua from the States preaching, and some brethren from Canada was just looking for an apostolic church and drive past. And of course, the doors are open. We're in the island, windows are open. And I was just preaching like as the Lord would give me. And they heard me and said, my God, our pastor need to meet you. And right there and then they called their pastor and said, you need to meet this man. And we start talking on the phone, and he said, would you come to Canada and do my convention? I said, I'm coming there too for another church who had invited me. And I came, saw Canada. Within the following year, I said, we're going to move. My wife and I, and we set her up to study and for her to move here. What am I saying? I had to leave the church that I served for 5 years because the Lord needed to connect me with some other people in some different space. Had I stayed there, I couldn't be able to connect with who I connect with to bring me into where I wanted to be, was ultimately to move here. So there are times when the Lord said move, and we are stuck in it because this is what I know. We must move when God say move, even when it get uncomfortable, even when it get uneasy. Always know that the Lord is speaking in the midst of it, and there is a blessing. In the midst of everything, there's a blessing. When I went there, Pastor Clive, from the month of March till the month of November, I wasn't working, no family member, no nothing. I fast without a cause. The Lord stripped every food and everything around me. I was preaching before, but I didn't understand ministry. I was preaching, but I didn't understand God. And it's right there in the midst of that that the Lord would birth ministry out of me. There is a price to pay for the gift. There's a price to pay for the anointing. From March, Brother Rasheen, until November, the Lord said it's the process. Days I was hungry. I lived with a bishop and I was hungry. I lived with a bishop that didn't even ask me if I eat. Can I be honest? I work and serve in church and preach on a Sunday, go back home and sleep, no food, and go back Sunday night and I worship, never make it an issue. And I served and I served. Never asked me, did you eat? And I don't work from March until the month of November. In the month of August, the Lord moved me to Sandals to do a training, and I didn't have my permit yet to work. And I've never seen this before. A company say, we want you. You already trained. We'll wait until whenever you get your documents. You hear me? And from August till November 1st, before I get my documents and able to work, the Lord said, I'm going to bless you with the job and hold the job until the Lord said, go back and seek me. It's the process. While I'm there and I'm looking to get my document, somebody connect me with the assistant superintendent of police. The gentleman says, I can get your document, but I need the man who is in charge of immigration, the immigration chief, and we are in malice because he did something. And as the commissioner of the assistant commissioner of police, I had to pull him up. He said, I heard you're a man of God. Hear this, Pastor Clive. He said, I heard you're a man of God. So tell you what I want you to do. Go home and ask the Lord to connect the immigration chief and I again. And if you pray and your God that you believe in, do it. He said, I'll walk you in immigration and walk you out with your documents. And I went home, seek the Lord again and fasting. I said, Lord, I'm giving you 2 weeks, Jesus, to do it. Before 2 weeks, the man called me and he said to me, you're a true man of God. He said, the immigration chief called me to do some training and border patrol. This man walked me into an immigration office and walked me out with papers in my hand. He said to me, stay close to me because I want you to work with me as my spiritual advisor. As I was praying, the Lord told me that he would become commissioner of police. And I prophesied to him that the Lord said, you're going to be the top cop, the commissioner of police. And I served as a spiritual advisor for many years to this point. Why? Because he said to me, stay close to me because you hear from God. The Lord, and that established me at a place in the country where I have an audience with the prime minister, audience with members of government, audience where we're a church. We had no problem. I had connections to get things done. What am I saying? What am I saying in the midst of all of this? The Lord Jesus Christ would allow you to go through some rough stages of your life because he was preparing me for a journey. He was preparing me for ministry. He was preparing me for where I'm at today and how to be level-headed. I don't get excited to be around men of high stature, because I've been there, done it. The Lord would have prepared me in the midst of it all, in the midst of hunger, in the midst of rejection, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of adversity. God is preparing you. God is fortifying you. God is strengthening you for the journey. As we wrap the show today, We want to say to you, even if you have to cry, cry if you must. But after you're through crying, pull yourself together, wash your face. Don't look like those who are mourning, but get yourself together and know the God in whom you trust, the God in whom you believe. David said, I was young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken or a seed begging bread. Grief and loss sometimes feel like it is final. It will feel like this is the last and I can't get past this. But I guarantee you, Pastor Clive tell you, let your faith respond in the time of adversary, in the time of hardship, in the time of neglect, in the time of hurt and pain. Let your faith respond. Your faith have got to respond to it. Let your faith respond. Don't talk just with your mouth, but allow your faith to respond, knowing the God in whom you serve. Pull yourself together. You are richer than you think. You are stronger than you think.
That's
You are
right.
braver than you think. You are wiser than you know. Transitions is not made to kill you. Transitions are made to strengthen you. Even if you're transitioning from a church to another church and you're asking the Lord, is this the right move? Stay on your face.
My
God likes to
God.
talk. Stay on your face. He likes to talk, but I need you to listen. Hear ye the word of the Lord. You may cry now, but trust me, weeping may endure for the night, but joy will come in the morning. Thank you so very much to our very special guest, our radio station manager, Minister Shane, to our co-host, Pastor Clive Atkinson, Bishop Elder Edmund Muir, to everyone that has joined us today for this discussion. I believe it was a blessing. It was a blessing to me, and I hope it was a blessing to you. I say thank you for joining me on this journey to the transformative power of transition. Remember, change is inevitable. It is an inevitable part of our life, but it's how we respond to it that defines us. Embrace the uncertainty, take the leap, and trust that you land exactly where you need to be. As we close this chapter, I leave with you a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. May you rise above your fears, your doubts and limitation, and may your transitions be a catalyst for growth, renewal, and a life that truly reflects your purpose and passion. Join us next time on the Ironman Empowerment Podcast, where we'll explore more topics to help you become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe. Go to your Play Store, download the Higher Ground Gospel Radio app. Download it on your phone where you can hear us 24/7. You can visit us at hegradio.ca. You can also subscribe to our channel on YouTube at HGG Radio. Subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Have the discussion on Facebook and your other social media platform with the hashtag Ironman Empowerment. We want to remind you that you are strong, you are great, you're bold, you're wise. Until next time, stay informed, stay transformed, keep shining your light, and we'll meet again next time, same place, right here on the Ironman Empowerment Podcast. On behalf of the entire production crew, our host and our co-host, we say thank you. We love you for watching, and we thank you for listening. Until next time, see you later. All right, bye-bye. Join us for the Ironman Empowerment Podcast, where we discuss matters close to the heart. This and every Saturday at 8 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on HGG Radio. I am your host, Dr. Lincoln Bryan, alongside your co-host, Pastor Clive Atkinson, Bishop Hopeton Morris, and Elder Edmund Muir. The Ironman Empowerment Podcast. We're not just talk, we're informative.